Go on. Yes, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. Everyone, welcome to the first episode of our TRX4M High Trail mini mega mud truck build. We're going to take our completely stock TRX4M High Trail, the Ford F-150, and we're going to turn it into a little mud slinging mega truck. So to do that, we are going to be installing the new RC all-wheel drive portal axles. You can get them separately, just front or the rear, or you can get the whole kit. I've got the whole kit, so front axle and rear axle. They're a mixture of aluminium and brass. Also going to be fitting the TRX4M low range gears from Traxxas, just to give us some better drivability, because out of the box the drivability on the TRX4M isn't the best, and obviously if we're going to mud it, it needs to be able to, plow through that mud without getting stuck every 5 seconds. So let's check the axles out, and then let's get them installed, and then let's go find some mud and see what this thing's like. So your front axle includes a metal geared steering servo. You've got brass portal covers, aluminium axle. You've got a really nice aluminium diff cover there as well. Brass hexes. Nice little bit of weight on these. Really nice quality. I mean, if you look at the build quality on these, it just looks so good. Really, really nice. So rear axle again, aluminium axle, brass portal covers, brass hexes. Again, really nice build quality on that. Metal gears and everything as well in all of the axles. So, nice and sturdy, getting rid of all the kind of plastic gears. If you just buy the front or the rear, you'll get the appropriate drive shaft and everything to come with it. But in this bag, you also get diff locks. So they're open diffs out of the box, but with the diff lockers, if you just basically swap them over and obviously change the diff gear over, then you can obviously change it to lock diffs. So we'll get that done in a moment as well. Installation should be pretty easy. We're just going to undo the screws that hold in the shocks and the suspension links. Undo the drive shafts, and then we can basically disconnect the steering servo, remove both axles, stick the new axles on, reconnect everything. For now I'm just going to reuse the stock suspension links, because I don't have longer links for the TRX4M High Trail, so we'll stick with the stock links. But yeah, we'll change the axles over, we'll use the new steering servo, we'll change the drive shafts over, then we can see how this thing sits compared to how it sits now. In my opinion, the High Trail, it's a nice rig, but the body's kind of high and the center point is fairly high, but the rest of it is very similar to a stock TRX4M. You got your steering link catches and everything, just more than my finger ground clearance. So not a massive amount of ground clearance considering it is meant to be the High Trail. So hopefully with these portal housings we should get the ground clearance that, in my opinion, it should have come with out of the box. So let's get these things installed and then let's see what they're like. So first things first, let's just get this front axle stripped down so we can get the locking diffs installed. We'll have a little look at it as we strip it apart, and then we'll do the rear and then we'll get them installed. So to get them stripped down, you're just going to undo the top screw and the bottom screw on each side of your portal housings. Undo one of your steering links and then just basically pull it apart, and then we can take the diff cover off with the 4 screws, and then we can get to the actual differentials. So to get that done, you're going to need a 1.5mm hex driver. So there we go, slide the one side out. We just undo that steering link as well. And we can slide the other side out. And we just got the axle itself. So we just get these 4 screws off the diff housing, and then we can get to the diffs. Okay, and then once you've got the last screw out, you can just pop the diff housing off. And then we can see the actual inside of the diff itself. So they do include metal ball bearings as well, which is really nice. So let's pop the diff out. Should just come out nice and easily. You can see you've got the output gear on there as well. And then if we just basically take this bearing off, and then we'll be able to get to the 4 little screws that hold the diff gear on. And then obviously we can swap that over onto the lock diffs. And then once they're off, you can get to the little Phillips head screws to hold the diff gear on. Once you've got your 4 little screws out, you can just basically pull the diff gear off, and you can actually see inside
The diffs, obviously that's your open diff with obviously all your different gears in there and everything. And then there's your little locking diff. So again, it's just got the little 4 holes for the screws. So we're just going to basically just get our diff gear. We're just going to pop it on. And then you're just going to line it up the screws, put the screws back in, and then we can basically put everything back together. So let's get that done. Put our output shaft gear back in there. Now, because I know I'm going to be running this thing in the mud and water and it's got bearings, if it was just bushings, I probably wouldn't bother. But as it's bearings, I'm going to stick some white marine grease on there just to hopefully stop those bearings from seizing up over time. So obviously if you're running your rig in mud and water, bearings will generally seize up, especially when they're just metal sealed bearings, not rubber sealed bearings. And you don't have to go crazy with the marine grease or whatever grease you're using. I just generally just put a little layer of it around it just so the bearing then hopefully doesn't seize to it. Then you can just slide your bearing on. Okay, that should be nice and free. So we've got a lock diff back in there. I've just put a bit of marine grease on the bearings and everything as well, on the gears, just to try and hopefully help it last a bit longer. Also just a little bit of marine grease in the actual diff cover as well. So let's chuck that back on. There we go, axles all back together. Don't forget to put your bushings back in and everything for your top and bottom mount of your portal housing on both sides. And then also reconnect all of your steering link and everything. Job done. So that's our front axle done. So I'm going to get the rear axle done. I'll do that off camera because you've already seen the front axle, pretty much the same thing. And then we will start stripping down the TRX4M and get it installed. Just before I put the rears back together, I just thought I'd show you the metal gears on the portal axles as well, just so you can see that it does have those metal gears, and again, they've all got ball bearings as well. Okay, so I've gone ahead and changed the low range gears in the gearbox already. I've got another video on my channel. I'll put a link in the description if you want to know how to do that. I've got an actual install guide taking you through how to do it dead easy. What we're going to do now is we're just going to strip down the stock axles. So it's literally just one screw on each side to hold the shock and the bottom link on. One screw at the top here to undo the top 2 links. Okay, so that's the rear axle installed. Also just use the grub screw from the screw set that comes with the axles to attach your drive shaft. The longer drive shaft goes on the rear. Okay, front axle is installed as well, so that's all reconnected up. Now I did break one of the screws on the rear portal housing. And one of the screws that was actually holding the diff gear on was also kind of rounded off, so I had to really, attack it to get it out and then replaced it. They do give you some spare screws and so on, so you can replace it. But yeah, so there's a couple of screw issues, but not the end of the world. So we've got it all back together. Before I tidy it all up, just one thing to show you. Obviously, when you fit your portal axles, because the TRX4M is reverse rotation, it means that when you go forward, you go backwards. So if I just show you that a moment. So now when we go forwards, we're actually going backwards. And if we go backwards, we go forwards. Now there's a few options for reversing rotation. You can program the ESC to go forward is reverse and reverse is forward. If you've got an aftermarket motor, you could just flip the plug round, because you probably won't have the Traxxas style plug where it's meant to go a particular way, because you can see it's kind of shaped for the motor to go in just one way. However, what you can just do, and the easiest thing, if you're running the stock motor, just de-pin the wires and just swap them round. So that's what I'm going to do in a moment, just de-pin them, swap them round, so then obviously the motor will still run in the correct direction. One thing to note, if you do have the Pro Scale light kit, if you use the ESC option to reverse the rotation, then it might play havoc with your lights, because obviously they're designed to be forward brake, etc. So I would just de-pin the motor and just swap the wires around if you're just basically completely stock, which is what I am. So I'm going to de-pin these, swap them over, and then let's get the wheels back on, get the body back on, and see what this thing looks like. Now that is a high trail. Look at the ground clearance we got now. That is huge. Look. Before we could get, one finger in there? Now we can almost get 2 fingers in there. That's how much ground clearance we've gained. I mean, obviously with that extra ground clearance, it's going to be a lot more kind of like top heavy and unstable, but at the end of the day, we're building a mini mega mud truck, so we don't really care if it's going to tip over, because this thing's just going to be ploughing through mud. So I've left the stock wheels and tyres on there. We can give it a go with the stock wheels and tyres first and see how it performs. And then the next part of the build, we're going to be changing the wheels and tyres and sticking some nice big wheels and tyres on this thing.
But yeah, I mean, I am really happy with that. I think that looks awesome. You know, that is the look that I'm going for. And obviously with bigger wheels and tyres in there as well, it's going to be even meaner. I just think that looks cool. This is, to me, the kind of thing that Traxxas should have done to make it an actual high trail out of the box. I just think that just looks awesome. Really easy install, you know, didn't take very long at all. Obviously I swapped over to the low range gears at the same time as well. I'm really happy with these axles. I just think they look awesome. The only thing I'm not sure on is the drive shafts. I might change the drive shafts. They're a little bit, there's a bit of play in them. They're quite thin, so I might possibly swap back to the stock drive shafts, but you know, we'll give them a go and see what they're like. Hopefully they're okay. But I just wanted to, you know, highlight that as well. I've left it obviously with the stock shocks and everything on there for the moment, because again, you know, for now we're just literally doing the lift for the Portal Axles. So let's get this thing outside, let's go find some mud, and let's see how this thing performs now. I took it out mudding previously when it was completely stock, and it was just useless. I mean, the minute you came up against any time of mud, you know, you just got hung up on the axle where it was so much lower, and also, you know, with the drivability that comes out of the box, it was just awful. You just couldn't get over anything. So hopefully this thing now is going to be a machine. So let's get out there and find some mud and give it a try. Okay, so first off, we've got much better ground clearance now with these Portal Axles, so let's just run over these routes and then we should be able to find our first bit of mud and test out our little mini mega mud truck build. So you can see it's definitely better on the ground clearance now with those Portal Axles. It's not getting stuck on everything. The stock tyres are struggling a little bit in the wet, so let's see what they're like in the mud. You can see it's so much better now with those Portal Axles. I mean, before I couldn't even go through any mud, to be honest, without kind of going full speed. It just really jammed up and got stuck, got caught on the axles, steering link. That is so much better. And obviously that's still with the stock wheels and tyres as well, so really happy with that so far. Let's go find some more mud. That's the only thing now with obviously the low range gears, is not very fast. So this is kind of just like a temporary measure. I've got more plans to make this thing quick again, but for now we just want to, with a stock ESC and everything, we just want to run those low range gears, so at least we've got some better drivability for the mud.
We got a really nice mud pit here. This is where most things will get stuck and caught up in the little kind of different elevations of the mud. So it'd be interesting to see how this thing gets through now with those portal axles and all that extra ground clearance. So let's go mega mud truck. That's one of the things I do like about the TRX4M. The stock shocks, really nice movement on them, you know. As it's going over those different ridge lines, you can just see that movement. I just think it looks really, really nice. Now this is where we need some huge mega mud tyres, because this is a proper swamp. I'm not sure we're going to make it through here. I think we might be beached in the mud there, but nice little reflection shot while we're there. But yeah, that's where we need some like mega mud tyres, to be honest, to be able to just keep ploughing through this. That's how far my welly goes in it, so to be fair, it's quite an expectation for the truck to get through there, to be honest. Go on. That's what I'm talking about. That's some little mudding there. That was awesome. I'm surprised it actually got out of that. It did really, really well.
To be fair, I think that did really, really well. Really happy with those RC all-wheel drive axles. I just think the difference having those Portal axles make such a difference. You know, this is much more like what you'd expect from a High Trail now. You know, it's doing a really good job getting over all the obstacles, ploughing through the mud, and that's still on the stock wheels and tyres as well. And to be fair, you know, it's pretty stable as well. There's a nice bit of weight on those axles, and it's not tipping over, you know, as much as I thought it would. Obviously on the rocks I'm sure it would tip over, but yeah, really happy with that, and I think it just looks awesome as well. This is much more the look that I wanted to go for with the High Trail. I'm really happy with this steering servo that comes on the RC all-wheel drive Portal axles as well. It's got a decent bit of power, you know, it's not struggling or anything like that. It's pretty quick as well, yeah, so, you know, decent little steering servo as well. If you want to get yourself a set of the axles or any of the other RC all-wheel drive products, I'll put a link in the description. You can use my discount code to get 5% off their products. Let me know what you think of them. Let me know what you think of the High Trail now. Do you think it's much better than it was out of the box? And do you agree that this is kind of more like what Traxxas should have made it out of the box? Portal axles and an actual decent lift, so it is like a proper High Trail, you know, similar to the actual its bigger brother, the TRX4. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. Drop me a comment if you've got any questions. Give us a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.